So,
Okay.
riding to work this morning, and one of the things that I didn't hear about that until this morning. One of the aftermaths of that horrible shooting in Florida. Obviously, a lot of people angry at the NRA. So some boycotts started. Some boycotts about businesses that work with the NRA. So there was a company that I think does one of the rental car companies has backed out of a contract with the a discount contract with the NRA. A couple other companies have backed out, and this got me thinking about boycotts and kind of how easy they are to organize today. Because in the past, if you wanted to do a boycott, you pretty much had to do it through mainstream media. You had to somehow get a reporter to come out and or you had to get a political figure saying, yeah, we should boycott whatever, right? But now. One of the biggest boycotts, I guess, happened on Twitter, and it kind of went viral. And it was, I thought I printed out the right article here, but I didn't. Michael Skolnick, LifeLock, that's right, Semantic. So this guy started a Twitter campaign saying, hey, LifeLock has got a relationship with the NRA, boycott Semantic and LifeLock and all that, and they did. And Semantic withheld their or pulled their association with the NRA in terms of this discount. Is this a good thing? Should consumers via the media, via social media, have the power? Is that a good thing that almost instantaneously can cause companies to sever ties just because they don't want the bad publicity? In the past, boycotts built slowly, and a company would have a chance to do some back and forth. But now it's like, bam, you're hit, and you've got to make a decision like immediately. Oh my gosh, do we keep this relationship? Do we break this relationship? Because you've got this viral campaign going on. Is that good?
It is a very complicated issue, what you're asking, because there are two very fundamental rights coming in conflict. There's a right of people to express their opinion, consumers, voters, and there's the right of businesses to have free and unfettered business relationships. There's something called tortious interference, that you can't get involved with business relationships between businesses, relationships. But consumers can get involved in those. Consumers can say, "Well, to heck with that. I want you to not support that."
Or I'm not going to buy your product.
Or if you're, we don't want you to have advertising dollars from that company. Or if you are an advertiser, pull your dollars. Yes, consumers, users, people should have the right to do that. It's an important fundamental right, I think, to organize and to make your opinions known.
But is it good?
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Well, because there's plenty of things in society that you would call good that I would call bad. Okay. There's natural law that says that people should be able to have their voice known. Good governance is a series of listening to people's voices in certain ways, and governance doesn't just include government, it also includes, this larger societal issues of how you do business and voting with your dollars. So good doesn't matter. Should it happen? Yes, absolutely, it should happen. It's an effective way for people to have their voices heard. I mean, if it affected us, I would, as a business, I'd be very upset about it.
Sure, right.
And I would look at why we were being boycotted, and I'd say, well, is that something that makes sense? Do I feel like there's something there? I mean, if we were supporters of if the NRA was a business that gave Quality Digest a lot of dollars for some reason, through advertising, let's say, my personal ethos as a publisher is I say, I don't really I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't like the NRA. I'm a fairly progressive person. I'm not a gun owner or shooter. I don't really believe strongly in assault rifles. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I don't believe
suppose
half of our readership.
Or no, suppose half of your advertising, or a third of your advertising, or a quarter of your advertising came from them.
So essentially
that's a
what
lot
you're
of
saying
money.
is
It's like, whoa, that's a lot of money to give up.
It's your business model.
Your business model.
If your business model is threatened at that level, you got to think long and hard about what your business model. I mean, because if your business model doesn't align with your ethics, something's got to give. I mean, if I'm the publisher of Quality Digest and that much of our money is coming from something I really don't believe in, I shouldn't be the publisher of Quality Digest.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, at some point you got to make a decision as to what you believe in. Bring your ethics to work and vice versa. It's a really hard issue you're asking about. I mean, again, you look at these things in real time and they happen very quickly. The velocity of a protest online can happen within hours.
Well, let's take a slightly different twist on this, because I just thought of this. So we're talking about right now, let's say the boycott for against some of the NRA corporate partners. This is legit, and you know, the people who are protesting this, you know, we can look them up. We know that these are probably legit people, and so, you know, they're trying to influence the populace by asking them to boycott, right? How does that differ than the Russians trying to influence the populace, even though it was fake, you know, fake postings and all that sort of, using social media, the same thing. I mean, you can say, well, one is a bad player and the other's a good player, but they're both doing the same thing. They're trying to influence.
For one thing, they're not citizens. They're commenting on something they don't have really any say in. You know, if you're a Russian citizen, if you're working for the Russian oligarchy and the Russian government, well, I guess it's free speech all over the world.
Well,
but
that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
it's the same. But
they don't have a stake. They don't have any skin in that game. They shouldn't have skin in that game. They shouldn't be able to really have a lot of influence in an American presidential election. Just like Americans shouldn't have influence really in elections in other parts of the world too. To be fair about it. But I mean, there is a difference there.
So you're saying it's not the method. It's
who's involved.
Who's involved.
It's the motivations. It's a really complicated issue because again, I may say the motivations are wrong coming from one position. You may say the motivations are very right coming from another. I mean, abortion is another huge issue that's very similar to this. I mean, the NRA, gun rights, Second Amendment rights, and abortion rights are kind of like flip sides of the same coin in terms of the passion of the people that are on either side of them, that you don't give an inch on either side. I mean, you know, NRA advocates, Second Amendment advocates say, well, we can't at all chip away at gun right ownership, even though many of us would say, well, assault rifles make sense not to be owned, maybe. You can't own a bazooka, you know what I mean? And abortion rights activists, on the other hand, would say, well, we can't chip away at any abortion rights. Even though most of us would say, well, you really shouldn't be able to have an abortion after a certain period of time. I mean, it's not right. So it's like, well, is there anybody in the middle that looks at this logically and says, well, let's look at what is just the most sensible position? Or is it just people retreating to their quarters like they normally do and say, well, we can't give an inch?
And social media right now is kind of the way to influence.
And it doesn't help.
Social media is the way to influence people either way, to kind of maybe tilt. If you're on the fence, this is a way to tilt you one way or the other.
The organizational structure of social media is fantastic for doing that. The velocity of it is a problem. I mean, in terms of organizations that are dealing with this, companies that are suffering from a boycott, for whatever, if you think that boycott's wrong or right, if they're having a problem with it, their people need to decide many times within hours.
That was my point. It's just it's so quick that you have to be ready to respond to.
It's risk management. I mean, this is part of risk management too. You need to identify these risks going in, and again, if you're doing business with certain companies or certain organizations, maybe it's Planned Parenthood, maybe it's NRA. If you're taking dollars from those organizations, that needs to be a part of your risk management strategy. So, okay,
you got to know people are going to be contrary to that.
Exactly. If we have politically sensitive things we're doing, and we're taking dollars from potentially politically sensitive organizations, and it's part of our business model, we need to identify that as a risk to our core operating structure, and be ready to put things into place to identify it, either to defend why you're doing it, or again, if you can't defend why you're doing it, say, should we be doing that? If that is our business model, is that the right model for us to be in? Complicated issue, Derek. That's a tough one, man. All right.